Tiffany Putenis is an author who loves fantasy stories, wandering the forest near her home, and snuggling with her cats and her kids when they let her. She's wanted to be a writer for as long as she can remember, and she still fangirls when her favorite authors follow her on social media. Tiffany, over to you.
Awesome. Good morning. Well, I guess afternoon now, and thanks so much for joining me. I'm going to be reading from Daughter of Shadows today, starting in, I believe, chapter 3. So, delicate shadows danced along the ground as the bright winter sun filtered through the leaves. The sunlight teased out the golden tones in her hair, and its warmth brought roses to her cheeks as she walked through the path that led to the library's massive wooden doors. The door to the left swung open as she approached, a wizened man bowing deeply at the waist to her as he held the door. "Thank you, sir," she said as she walked through. He smiled, revealing a gap with several missing teeth. "It's my pleasure, milady." She started to correct him, but stopped herself. "I certainly look the part today in one of Bess's nice dresses," she thought. No need to spoil that image for him. She walked to the circulation desk and waited quietly as the woman seated there finished assisting another patron. "Next," she called out. Saya approached the desk. "Ma'am, I'm looking for books on magical history. Could you please point me to the right location?" she asked. "Magical history," the librarian said, tapping her fingers on the desk. "Reference books or fiction?" "Reference," Saya replied. "4 aisles to the right and 10 rows back from here," the librarian said, though there aren't many books on the subject. The few who do still believe in magic haven't had much need to pass on their knowledge. Oh, okay. Thank you for your help." Saya looked around, counting the aisles and rows as she tried to contact the right spot. "To the left," the librarian said, noticing her confusion. "There's a reading table with a stained glass lamp in the center of that particular row." "Thanks," Saya said bashfully. She walked to the left, counting the aisles as she passed through. When she saw the table and lamp, she paused and removed her cloak, draping it across the back of the tufted armchair beside the table. Walking to the stacks, she wandered along the shelves, trailing her fingers across the spines of the books as she studied their titles. The History of Magic, Magical Beings, Demons and Thralls, Lost in Shadow, A Study of Magic, Angelic Influence, Magic and Humanity, she read aloud to herself as she paced. She grabbed Lost in Shadow from the shelf. Hopefully this will give me something I can use. The tufted armchair cradled her as she settled into its cushions. A small cast iron foot stove filled with smoldering coals and bricks sat beneath the reading table, producing just enough heat to warm the immediate area. The butterfly-patterned stained glass lamp cast an aura of light around the chair, its blues and purples glowing softly. Saya curled her feet under herself and draped her cloak around her like a blanket, snuggling in with Lost in Shadow. Little is known of those who can manipulate shadows, she read. Those abilities are rumored to be linked directly to the presence of demonic blood in the family line. Studies of the few individuals who did not go mad as the result of their abilities were inconclusive, as demon genetics in one's history are not traceable through any scientific method currently available. It is suspected that those who did not go mad may have other genetic anomalies that allow them to sustain their exposure to the shadows while still maintaining their humility. She set the book down on her lap and stared at the shelves. The few individuals who did not go mad, she trailed off. The shadows could make people go mad? She picked up the book and continued reading, a small crease forming between her delicate eyebrows. Of the 6 subjects who agreed to be interviewed regarding their abilities, 2 maintained their humanity and kept their sanity, despite the near constant exposure to the shadow realm. The other 4 began to suffer delusions around their 5th year of exposure, eventually disappearing fully into the shadow realm. Nothing is known of it or where it is located, but those who disappeared were never seen or heard from again. Saya read for a few more minutes, becoming distracted as the subject matter in the book became dry. The author began to dissect a variety of statistics, and she found that she could no longer focus on the material as it began to exceed her mathematical knowledge. She shook herself awake as she felt her eyelids begin to slide closed. 5 years. The people who went insane lost their mind around 5 years after their abilities manifested, eventually disappearing fully. I started to be able to manipulate shadows almost 10 years ago. It must be safe for me now. I'm one of the few who's able to remain in our realm without going insane. She sighed, skimming the book a bit more in hopes of learning about where the ability came from, but there was nothing pertinent in the slim volume. She pushed her cloak aside, throwing it over the arm of the chair, and stood, shaking out her skirts and stretching. Replacing the book, she ran her fingers along the spines of the others, perusing the stacks for a few more moments before deciding to head back out to begin her search for Cage. She wrapped her cloak around her shoulders again, fastening it with the delicate fern-shaped pen that Bess insisted she used, swearing that it was intended to be worn with the cloak. As she passed the circulation desk, she looked for the librarian to thank her, but the desk was empty and the small lamp switched off. The light streaming in through the windows glowed golden, the bright sunlight shimmering through the leaded glass panes. She pushed open the door and slipped into the daylight, tucking her cloak a bit tighter around her as a breeze kicked up, lifting its edges and sending a blast of chilled air under it through her muslin dress. Okay. So that is Daughter of Shadows. And if you are interested and want to know more, there is a giveaway.